So begin with the Heart Sutra in English on page 2. Thus I've heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain, with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the 5 skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should the son of a lineage trained who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The 5 skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors of consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on, until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance and so on, up to no old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending in falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom, and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhi soha. Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, noble Avalokiteshvara, that he has spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One has said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Lama Gangpo Jetsu Yabe Yama Joselu Gange Rodru Dene Nedanam Darasarabe Jenye Yogo Jijete Nije Dugale Pate Kada Sibete Ema Nedo Dula Jizere Razo Kala Pachitate Yana Tuchu Yandeso Rada Chiro Nyemanyeko Deje Charo Rozeche Mare Mese Dumenyu Chene Chunze Radrena Dene Tajin Saju Tatsu Yede Rizo Jase Tuko Chada Chuka Chuni Gede Talu Mizi Jabe Yanadu Arapasanadi O Arapasanadi O Arapasanadi Cheche Chera Zeche Dalu Timu Maparasane Kada Deju Yulu Tobayi Lode Bobe Nawase Lusto. Continue with the Shravananda offering on page 16. Sahi Puji Ruji Medora Dirani Yemi Demi Padi Sanji Jibu Mide Buayi Rogu Namda Jina Jumarayo Lama Namba Jina Ji Chugu Kala Jete Tete Jeta Sambe Duje Zamana Saje Chuje Java Vaduso Jena Vidana Gandhi Astayame. Continue with the refuge prayer at page 22. Sanjay Chadang Soje Jonama Jajo Bardo Dane Josuji Dage Chuje Jive Sonati Rala Pinjira Sanjay Druparayo Sanjay Chadang Soje Jonama Jajo Bardo Dane Josuji Dage Chuje Jive Sonati Rala Pinjira Sanjay Druparayo Sanjay Chadang Soje Jonama Jajo Bardo Dane Josuji Dage Chuje Jive Sonati Rala Pinjira Sanjay Druparayo.
당도 가지 수명은 참잖아. 세계적이잖아. 또한 인진이 뭐지? 인별로 아주 배워는 줄. 저다 상관 때문에 아무한테 제네는 인진도 도시 안에는 미와 배란에 대자스 다들 배제까지 증명을 해줄 수 있는 말이야. 다음에 또한 인진이 뭐지? 인별로 아주 배워는 줄 다른 줄 배워지 않거든. 자산들 다른 줄에서 무슨 공부 좀 도와. 최종의 기반이냐 로주 고고를 아니 제당 말로서 소소 소소하나 로주 이거 고야지로와 로주 고에서 뭐야고 시간 세력이 받는다 그죠 말에 말로서 칸 사요 거래 르르 고양 거래 제당 말로서 르르 고야면은 대왕이 에는 소참도 와요 거래 칸은 자야도 도야면은 양무를 쳐도 말에 제당 말로서 르르 쳐와라 에는 나 사야도 쳐도야 니자 고고도 봐 제당도 돼 맨날 르르 쳐도요 근데 이제 다들 로주에 라니를 고고 요아 있나요 로주에 소소 거서 tempo 상게 로주에 소소를 요구했는데 말아 제상 라니를 로주에 요아한테 주다 길되는 로주 요구를 로주 매바샤한테 주다 길되는 로주 매바샤고 했다고 소데 레레티니 주다 들고 나자 때니 샤야주래 로주에 보이는 소리네 소소 테라바비게 레상고제 사요래 주사 상고제 그요래 제가 다다다리 소다와 있네 소소는 주사지 말로 빨라 소소는 되게 되는 용으로 와 소소는 되게 되는 거고에는 대유하게 체도면서 소들의 배twe지니 대체도 소소 자와 이루고도 같은 하시 제가 지금 주에 필요한 주에 상보 탈로 주에 유하게 대인을 비치가는 집어다니들의 수고가 좋다 제가 집어도나 하는 마주 요구를 해서 집으로 주트지데 집어도나 마주 요구를 수료는 대로 오래 시작 롱트에 다나시 제가 다 집어 땅을 해서 다 집어 땅을 뭐 야나 집어 땅을 지미지 소소를 요약이들이 뭐는 같이 당 때마다지 시를 되고 그랬는데 되고요 말 제가 집어서 동시에 소설 논으로 주시면 주요가 있네요. 무슨 소설 논으로 주시면 주요가 있네요. telea maachapata maajepache tenrigo ine tamu so nono ji to yumi kara telea mosege ane chayi shu chi ko jia na telea nzeba shu chi ko jia ni en jawa zambo chale ya amu so ko po ro ro te ko shu ro ro ta te nono ji shi ji yo ine so nono ji telea chayi shu chi ko jia na je 소속이 무에서 거기 이제 다양 과거가 좋아 있네. 소속은 나로 있더니 근데 동생이 보여주고 있네. 데려고. 제가 나로 주요 있는 이미지를 태우는데 되게 비는 거 그게 말라. 가정 마음을 conna셔도 지만 땀이 거리네. 제 당사가 유들이야. 거지만 나와 있나? 내가 밴도 가는 폴 밴도 가는 거. 다시 요요가 지어래서 폴 거는 변동면은 내가 변동 유명하다. 폴 거는 내지면은 근데 집어당 유명하래서. 근데 폴 거는 유명하고. 안에 폴 거는 배우면은 제세의 집도 와서 거네. 명의가 있는데 집어당 말이었어. 안에 폴 거는 변동 유명하서. 와들이 뭐 집어당 유명하냐. 소남주 배진 당서에 와들이한테 간다지 가서 유명해야. 그래서 주나 체담포 상황에 변동해봤지. 대만 좋아 있네요. 포를 변동해봤지. 체제 변동하면 포를 변동해봤지. 대대지 있는 집안 나오는구나. 아니 체담포 닌자를 변동했나? 아니 소들이 집안 나야지 요이네. 다 나중에 말했어. 어떻게 som도 왔잖아. 이제 다들 좋은데 약간 집을 아주 표현해서 로주가나
So we'll go back to verse 22. It's verse 23 plus 2 lines of the verse. Position in enhanced generosity and whose nature is emptiness and compassion. What is that?
What page?
Oh, it's page, it's root text. Okay, let me.
Verse 22.
22.
Verse 23.
23.
Yeah, verse 23.
Okay.
the verse, the root text. Let's go back to the root text.
Right.
Okay. Did you get it?
Yep.
Verse 23, last two lines. We're just reading last two lines, okay? Positions are enhanced through generosity. So it is he elaborated more on the practice of generosity here. We elucidated more on this line, the third line of verse 23, which is position and enhanced through generosity. So what is meant by the position is enhanced through generosity? Is because if one engages in the practice of generosity, it is a genuine practice of generosity. We're not talking about haphazard practice of generosity, but rather genuine practice. Then this will enable one to achieve resources, positions, and so on. So this particular line teaches on if one, wants to enhance one's position in one's resources, one must engage in the practice of generosity. So, so the resources and the positions are needed. Even the practitioners, someone who is a great practitioner, it is needed as a human being, as ordinary beings or human beings who are living on this planet Earth. Even if one reach high levels of realizations of practice, spiritual practice, these are needed because one need to eat, one need to drink, need fooding, clothing, shelter, and so on. All those are needed for all of us. So therefore, the position is not something that's need to be completely, shunned. So what is important to understand here is now, when we have those positions, when we have those resources, as a practitioner, important for us to think about is to not to have attachments. Should not cling onto it, should not have attachment onto it. That is very important because when we talk about engaging as a result of practicing generosity, one will become affluent and having a lot of resources and so forth. That automatically, brings or induces attachment and clinging onto one's positions and one's resources. But this should not be the case for the practitioners, making sure that even though that one may have resources, one may have positions and so on and so forth, but one should not have any attachment towards that. So it is therefore practicing generosity is important for enhancement of one's positions. So again, we talked about that during our last discussions of that. When we talk about practice of generosity, it's not necessarily that we need to have some kind of gift that is given to others. That is not necessary. When we talk about generosity, the actual generosity is not the gift, the substances, or the object that is given to others. This is not what we talk about generosity. The actual generosity is the thought of giving without having any attachment. Thought of giving to others. This should be first maintained, because if one's mind is not really trained how to practice generosity, you may give something to someone, but there might be some kind of attachment is involved. If this is so, then one's giving away, even if that's a very important gift that you have given to others, it may not become a real generosity. So therefore, first of all, making sure that your mind of giving, mind of engaging in the practice, in other words, thought or intention of giving others should be very pure in there. If one is able to train one's mind and able to, practice and become perfect intention of giving gift to someone, then even if you have given a very little thing to others, it will become a great generosity. So therefore, we should always practice mentally how do we, when we are actually giving away the gift to others, how do we give? And in what manner that we actually give the gift to others. And that is important to understand and important to train ourselves. So, and when we're actually giving the things to others, again, it is also important to understand, according to the text, that saying the gift that you're actually giving to others is something that is beneficial for others. How beneficial it is for temporarily and how beneficial it is for long term. Both long term and short term must be, roughly be estimated, be able to estimate by oneself for whatever the gift that one is giving to others. And so, here now, to summarize this line, it says, if one wants to have or enhance one's positions and one's resources, then one should practice generosity. And practicing generosity is not something that one is giving away, something that one is able to give out to someone. But whatever that one is giving to give to someone must not or should be done on the basis of not having any attachment and should not have cling onto the object that is to given to others.
Is there a card? There's a card. Oh, there's no longer.
Okay.
다들 저도 선발된 모양 당번이 되지네 세제 저도 선발된 모양 세제 저도 준비사들에 저건 길을 두어서 근데 저도 선발된 모양 세제 말아서 당보추 나를 지원을 말이야 준비지 기준을 해서 뭐 저도 당보 준비지 요한제 되는데 준비돼 뮤트니마 가서 진짜스네 되어다 근데 때문에 뭐야 기준을 해서 뭐 저도 이러러 저건 길을 두어 준비되면은 무슨 개발을 도와드리는 거예요 말이에요 개발을 도와드려야 보지면은 근데 개발 문제가 그러는 거다 이제 개발 생태니 뭐 이거는 또 근데 도와드리면 그들이나는 개발 문제 좀 많아 이제 도와드 거래 더 도와드리네요 대주도 옆에서는 대주도 members 많이 봐 근데 땡고지만 진짜 내 도와지 그들이네 제가 개발이 두고 가서 하는 거지나 근데 개발이 두고 가라면 그래서 생각하는 거 거지 어떻게 되게 개발을 하고 좀 가서 뭐 이해서 그래서 수소가 세바 제가 하는 거 거지 이것도 어떻게 간다 맞추리데 근데 때문에 그렇지 요한테 나오래서 근데 운동 거리네 기초물에 누지 주가 상에 거리네 근데 기초물에서 대인들이 얼마 때문에 요한이 그래서 제가 드리지 당번인데 찾는데서
So the verse, let's go back. Let's go to verse 24. It's making an earnest effort with respect to what has been done, and so on, with firm diligence and firm intention. So, sorry, the first two lines of verse 24. So this talks about importance of making an earnest effort. effort or diligence is always needed. The firm diligence, in other words, it says. Firm diligence is always needed. Because without diligence, one will not have a courage or one will not have an intention of engaging in virtuous acts or, or, or practicing Dharma, in other words. Of course, in general, when you talk about effort or the diligence, it does not necessarily be something that is related to Dharma. But in this particular context, when you talk about diligence, it is completely connected to Dharma. We're talking about how do we enhance and develop our diligence to practice Dharma. That is the question here. Because without having this consistency of this diligence, and one's practice of Dharma will not become consistent. And without being able to engage in the practice of Dharma in a consistent manner, the spiritual realization and development of quality, the spiritual quality, is not possible. So the Bible says, making earnest effort with respect to what has been done and so on, with firm diligence and firm intention. So this diligence or the earnest effort is very important in the preparation stage when one is preparing to engage in the practice, which is also a prerequisite for one's practice. Not only that, but also the diligence, practice of diligence or the earnest effort is also equally important when one is actually engaging in the actual practice of Dharma.
니진도 도자는 교합변이 되자스. 단대 그래도 저도 상관된 거예요. 한번 되지는 니진도 도자는 교합변이 되자스. 류는 계산해야 돼. 이제 니진도 도자는 내서도 준비 모두 소에 들어게 상관된 요약에 소소 담보니 백kin청본을 했더니 내대지다. 맞아 내대에서부터 같이 보더니 양이 양도 내대진이다. 좀봐 데모주와 베지제네. 근데 토니 니지 그냥한테 소소 라지게 계사 대소 레 지세라지야. 아는 뭐구나. 괜찮대야. 저도 지세랑 대소대 전이제 전부 단이제세야 되잖아. 니제를 하려면 그게 요리네. 다도 근데 견주도 되어서 니제 전부 조짐벽이 되네. 자주가 생겨줘서 그래. 와다 니제 전부 니제 전부세야 돼. 가서 그래. 지금 뭐 다니는 거라 이 수식이 다니 제가 연구를 했잖아. 뭐 봤을 때 단계를 먹니. 나가 돈을 다니지 세와서 그래. 우리는 무슨 데를 저 니제 전부들 뭐 봐대. 세제 단계를 먹는 거라. 맞아. 완전 중이다. 누시드나 말해. 세제 단계를 먹니. 근데 단계 동아들 저는 쯤으로 세하는 거지. 세제 단계 동아들 저런 제나 선배 대략이 로슈 친구지 그래 로슈가 왔잖아요. 제가 지금 이제 친구스라고. 저 친구스인데 그 뭐에 대해서 이제 담지 입이잖아요. 뭐에 대해서 이제 담지 입이잖아요. 친구스라고. 아니야 세면 이제 상태는 그래. 세면 이제 대해서 이제 세면 말은 뭐니 나만 думаю 이제 와서 그래. 이제 담지랑 뭐지 두고요 말해. 이제 이제 세면 말은 저는 네가 또 있지요. 뭐니 무슨 있잖아 사회. 내가 이제 세미니지로 사줘요. 제가 가다죠. 된다기로 제가하게 권이라는 그래. 아니 계산이 쉽지 배우고요. 대나 이제 되는 장기 Marsa Zibigeza, and the Sajibigeza, Mama Sajibigeza. Then I Yangi, Marsa Zibigeza, the Sajibigeza, Mama Sajibigeza, Tanjaya Suzuki, and Mocho, Muedi, such as the Sanji salad, maybe Jirju show, Seattle, and then Lemon Sojania, or Moya, what the lady, Santawaina, and the contact gets 소소 무슨 사실 계산의 충분히는 매와 있나요? 시행이 틀었더니 로시행 풀었더니 이는 계산의 친구야 고백하는 거 어떻게 계산 배웠어야 돼? 대표지 돈에는 계산 충분히는 매와 친구 써야 돼. 계산 배워서 어떤 날
So then moving to next line, it's 24, the verse 24. Last two lines, putting compassion foremost, make an earnest effort to enhance goodness, right? So this talks about enhancing one's goodness or enhancing one's virtues. So now it says putting compassion foremost. We're not talking about a compassion, the general compassion that we normally talk about. In this, the compassion should be understood in the context of great compassion. It is a great compassion. There's a big difference between a great compassion and a compassion. And there's a difference between compassion and immeasurable compassion, great compassion. There's a difference in these two as well. So, great compassion normally defines a compassion that the focal object of the compassion would be entire sentient being without exception, and having an aspect of freeing suffering of all those sentient beings, entire sentient beings without exception. The immeasurable compassion is the focal object of immeasurable compassion is the immeasurable sentient beings and having a genuine wish to overcome the suffering, alleviating the suffering of immeasurable sentient beings, suffering of immeasurable beings. So this is difference in the focal object. One is mere focus on immeasurable, other is focus on entire sentient beings without exception. So there's a difference in the focal object. So, so this should be practiced and contemplated and meditated upon. And once this is done, then how do we enhance one's goodness? Just by dedicating one's practice of compassion dedicating towards the achievement of one's own enlightenment, that of all other sentient beings, enlightenment of all other sentient beings. Whatever the virtues, the merits that one may have accumulated in the past, whatever the merit that has been accumulated in the past by other sentient beings, the virtues, the merit that we have accumulating at present by oneself and that of all other sentient beings, and whatever the merit that we will be accumulating in the future by oneself and that of all the sentient beings. And all of those merits that accumulated in 3 times must be dedicated towards the achievement of enlightenment of oneself and that of all the sentient beings. If one is able to do that, then even though the one's practice or one's merit may be a minor at the present, it is due to one's genuine dedication, it will enhance one's merits, and significant enhancement will happen. That's what it says. So, so therefore, uh, whenever we engage in any kind of virtuous activities, such as practicing, meditating, contemplating, and even reading, some even, a few verses of the sutras and shastras and so on, it is always important to dedicate at the end.
단데니 가르도나 zambojubi chogashin chacha laso kweparjas te zambojubi chogashin siade zambojuba siade najunzo zamju mala siade re zambojubi mala siade kominte chogas siade tos ma korin tamchas Disha Jogati, they said that I Chogas Chogata challenge at the Yorova. Chazam Chogata challenge at the Cote Chogata Matano Nongi, Lono Sichi, challenge. The Datayagi, Corinthas of Disha Jogat Simba, Tanachilia, and Chogas Lava. Chadada, Zambochi Chogan Sambo, and the Zamju Mano, Guadi Taba, Corinthas, Malangreba. Chero Delia, Zamboju Chogas. She has a ten sumana, she is a Zamboju Muchona, Zamboju Chogan Sumana, she Chasawalas of Kubachas, that number so Chasawa and Chisha, United was also in one. Chana Chasawa de Mulia, many Shadato Dashur Nere, Chasawa, said down to Chazan, Zamboju Chogan Sumana, she and Chasawa, and Chubabore, yes, or Damone Chasawas, Zamboju Chogan Sumana, and Chasawa, yes, or
So now we're on verse 25. Verse 25, okay? It says, you should perform the ritual of good conduct in performing reverence and so on with respect, and constantly practicing faith and so on, loving kindness, recollection of Buddhas, and the rest. So first let's talk about the first two lines of the verse 25. We should perform the ritual of good conduct. So good conduct, it is the name of the prayer, which is the prayer of Samantabhadra, which is also known as the king of prayer. It says one should practice in accordance with the ritual that is found in the Samantabhadra Sutra, prayer, the king of prayer, and performing the reverence and so on with respect. So then it talks about, what kind of practice or the sequence of practice that are involved in the Samantabhadra practice. So then it says, performing the reverence and so on with respect. That is, it is referring to the seven limb prayers of prostrations and so on.
Chada Chatsaya, Chadane, Lugi Chatsaya, Magi Chatsaya, and Hiji Chatsaya. Taka the Luma Yosan Chatsaya Yuri. Chada Lugi Chatsaya Yukalia. Lugi Chatsaya Chadana, you are the need of a Chisha. Lutan Salapa Chada. And Nyasar Vichas, tene and then Jimmy Lu Chayo. That really is a papa in and so looking near my salary in and Kanda, Tambo de Lani Tamaja, Chachata Yango, Karasawati, Chana Tumanachi, Chetua and Yamose, Peninsula, Tante, Pachata, Pachate Shabi, Jigo, and so too much in the language I say war. So Tambo, Labani Tamaja, Niga 대만이 나도 공니 근데 라바디 또 고가로 지는 동아대자 도와지는 니가 가도 담아자 테니테 야기는 너무 지워를 도와지는 제지지 테니 마고 누가 가도 지지 아니 마게 니가 가도 지지 다자단 담는 나한테 줘야 돼 내가 소문이 지는 고소토는 자 쇼이나 너무 좋고 되는 거야 지워를 담아 지지 내가 손 도지 손 담는 거야 지도 내가 가도 담아 지자 니가 돈 남았는 집에 시 루야게 쳐도 네가 담아 지자 손이나 엔트니만 또 라바니 마 레다지 살고 지기나 아니 라바니데 라바라라 맞지 다 여기 라바사도 대본하는 줄 알아 말이 도대체 라바니네 막에 차대가시네 아니 차대에 도와지네 살르 강나야 가서 장에는 말짱 또 장에는 배워대야게 차대걸 리야 도와지는 차세가 되나 레다지 살고 차세야 되래 다 공차서 지는 공차지기는 아니 당원제 지와제 네가 당원자 아니 조월 지에 당원자 너바르 지에 네가 지자 아니 라바니 도와서가서 아니 뼈모 당연히 싸가서 아니 배워야 싸가는 그러지그래 데리야 배워제 라바 텐니제 조들어라는 게 로제 아니 뼈모 당연히 싸서 데리야 내가 살아 그러지 어도지네 자세하다 아니 야랑 담아지 그래야 컴바트도 컴바루바 컴바다나 바바니 지중을 컴바니 주루바 아니 류 태가 정보지네 야랑 아니 뭐 좋아해 먹고 아니 소소 담나 좋아하는 상황에 비슷 담다 류게 담아자고서 내가 자는 라바마 토스 살샤가 그래 돌아라면 베젤라 베트산 타왔지 아니 병원에 살도 아니 병원에 살이기도 어디까지 지원하는데 공차해야 되고 세대지 지원이나 어떻게 지원
So the ritual performance or the practice of the good conduct or the Samatavada prayer is the processions. Right? So when it comes to processions, there are three kinds of processions, is said. The procession through body, speech, and mind. So with regard to the body procession, they're primarily of two kinds, but there are also some other branches. But primarily there are two kinds. One is the full-length processions, which is placing one's entire body on the ground when prostrating. And then other is to touching one's five limbs, it says. It's referring to one's hands, two hands, palms, in other words, and to one's knees and foreheads. So that's the fourth. Placing on the ground. So those are the two primary divisions of bodily procession. And then there are also some other, divisions of the bodily processions as well, but let's focus on these two at this point. So when one is prostrating, here, as we are all familiar with by now, by folding one's palms together and it should, the one's folding of the palms should be formed like a jewel, it says. Not just, joining, rather one's thumb should be put inside. And this is how you should put the thumbs inside your palm, inside your palms, and forming a lotus form, or it's also jewel form. So it's called the form of jewel. This is one thing that we need to know right from the beginning. This is the first step of knowing how to prostrate. And then, of course, when the joint palms can be placing those joint palms at the four respective parts of one's body. But I will focus more here at this point, three respective parts instead of four respective parts of one's body. One is beginning from one's forehead, placing one's, touching, in other words, touching the joint palm at the forehead, at the throat, and at the heart. So those are the three parts that you're actually touching. Of course, there are also four ways of. There's another way of doing is that touching one's palm at the four respective places of one's palm. But we will talk here about at this time. We'll talk here about touching one's joint palm at three respective parts of one's body. So, so when one is actually prostrating, it is very important the prostration must be done in accordance with how it is advised to be prostrate, in accordance with the teachings of the Dharma itself. Then one will have a great benefits to be able to accumulate merits and to be able to implant a potency or the propensity within the stream of one's being, and a great potency. So now, by placing one's joint palm on one's forehead, is significance of accomplishing the Vajra body of the Buddha, and at one's throat, Vajra speech of the Buddha, at one's heart, is the Vajra mind of the Buddha. So these are the significance of placing one's joint palm to three respective places of one's body. So then, as we mentioned earlier, that one is a full length position, which is actually putting your entire body on the ground. And the other one is the half length positions, which is putting placing one's knees and one's palms and one's forehead touching on the ground.
다 나기 자체가 제때 나니 차세로니 네 이제 얘기 자체가 제때 다른 남도 소에 인진나니 네 차세서 유래서서 그거지야 당 누가지야 돼요 이제 차서 어떠서
So then, the prostration through speech, the verbal prostration, in other words, which is the recitation of Buddha's, such as 35 Buddha's name and reciting those verses, reading those. And then lastly is to prostration through mind, which is visualizing all those objects of refuge and paying respect and having reverence to those objects of refuge is said to be the prostration through mind.
다 라서 그거자 소리는 연락이 돼서 되게 취급해야 되지. 그래서 제라마다이나 가나 가인들 취급해야 돼. 취급해야 되지만 리저케지는 분자해야 돼. 분자시면 내버지비. 아니 분자서 그러거든. 남아 있는 이당 있는 주소 있는 거 돈이가 주소가 있는 안 되는 취급해서 그래. 가지고 주민이 받자. 레미카 저기 줘야 돼. 나만은 필요 줘봐. 아니면 바이서도 어때래? 주가 필요 차서 줘. 근데 디바샤 봐세요. 소발 디바샤 봐야 돼. 디바샤 봐야 돼. 랑이 사베. 마사베 디바 단다 사시. 시비 디바 뭐가 사완주 디바 탐지 에는 소소 또 코도 소한다 그 주발 되면 토안에 에는 니부터 이참 거니 샤만 소이는 나와이나. 근데 마다베 디바 메서 와. 제가 샤바페지 자자가 주시하바. 근데 지수랑 해야 돼. 지수랑 해야 돼. 오늘 줘야 돼. 랑이 자와서 뭐 제시해 드리는다. 시행이 집에 자와서 뭐 있는 저서만 빼야 버려서 대야 이제 대세로 찾아만 줘야지. 관리가 야고 지어서 또 집에 관리가 야고 말하는 사람을 하지. 라고 자와서 뭐 쉬리 그래서 빼야 버려서 수제지만 있는 봐줘야 돼. 자와서 뭐 들어 여러 째네. 빼야버려 스베틴도 정하이나 대단 지수야랑 서와 저는 여러 째지 찾아봐 주시셔봐 지수야랑 거기 소원대 세야되다 중국어 고유라 세야되다는데 라마네 추수라는 것이 안에 오고만 나야 돼 중국어 고유라 안에 남에는 소화다 봤어야 돼 안에 라마 고세요도 쉬어나 선로에도 안에 추수니 나도 그냥 되네. 근데 저를 보시러 나무 세야 되나요? 근데 나가면서 소화다 와서. 난 담아들어 모아서야 돼. 단적으로 저희 지금 모아서 있잖아. 자사관이 제대로 내가 대다 거래에 소소로 계산을 가 조리는데 근데 코선 몸이 제대로 돈이 세제단이 산지가 싸는 뭐야다. 너희들은 때문에 지금 로아들이 때문에 준주하셔. 고마워해야 돼. 기준을 해서 저는 자살하고 그걸 자세야 돼. 대단해지래 니들잖아.
So performing the reverence and so on with respect, which includes all the 7 main practices, out of which we already discussed on the prostrations, how do we prostrate, and divisions of the positions we have discussed roughly on that. And our next second practice is making an offering to the Guru, Idams, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and so on. And it is to please one's guru, particularly to make an offering. In offering, in a Sanskrit term, it says punja, or which is called puja as well. It is to, by means of making an offering that pleases the master, it's said to be the punja. And here now, out of all these offerings, there are many different kinds of offerings. The material offerings, offering of service, service to the Guru, and so on and so forth. And out of all these offerings, it is to say the supreme among all this offering is the offering of practice. By following the Guru's advice, teachings, and practicing diligently from the depth of one's heart is said to be the best offering among all these offerings. And then the third one is to purification of confession. Purification and confession must be done on the basis of application of 4 antidotes with great regrets and remorse of one's past negative deeds, as if one should have this regret, as if that one have drunk or ingested this poisons without knowing it. For instance, if one ingested a poisons without knowing it, and when we come to realize that, oh my God, I had a poisons, then how much regrets that we may have. And this is the kind of intensity of the regret that one must have with regard to one's past wrong deeds. And this will really become a good confession practice for the practice of purifications. And the fourth one is to rejoicing, which is very, very important for us really to know this. Rejoicing is always when someone is reciting the one here, or someone who is reciting even sixth level mantra, one should always rejoice that, without having any, jealousy or the sense of competitiveness, because this doesn't happen to us most of the time. When someone is doing some kind of virtuous conduct, or someone is reciting, someone is doing some practices, we just look at them as if that he or she is not doing right, or he is not following rightly, and so this is actually forced by it's actually the acceleration of our arrogance and our jealousy, which we should pay a very we should pay attention to that, but not to have this kind of, because with this rejoicing of the virtues of oneself and that of others would really give us a quiescence, innermost quiescence, and really help us to think. And then the fifth one is requesting the gurus for training the wheel of Dharma, now the teacher teaching the Dharma. And the sixth is to requesting Guru to stay as long as possible for the sake of all of the sentient beings, to teach all sentient beings. And then the seventh is to dedications. One should dedicate all those practices, the above six, the practices one have done is dedicated towards the achievement of one's achievement of enlightenment of oneself and that of other sentient beings.
대파로서 따놓고 다 대파스야 돼요. 주머니에 대파스야 하는 거다. 아니 신이 대파스야 하는 거다. 야나 주머니에 대파스야 하는 거다. 아예 대파스야 하는 거다. 대략이 이거 뭐예요? 간단하죠. 대파스야 돼. 소소하게 교회신이나 나 저희라마 교회라마 가르치고 있는 대기 남다른 태양비 그래서 생생등이야 저게 레지 바고 요와나 아니 많이 제가 좋아라서 그래 유명하게 에어벌레 삼에 제가 그래 생등이야지 뭐가 지어라는 대바지 스위치 어때는 우리 대바스나 레지라 그러냐 어때는 대바데 뒤에 용거한테 바바 요한 갖고 이러죠 근데 아니 라미게 남다른 라미게 대바 저도 야야 텐데 텐데 대바데 뒤에 상황에 뭐 뒤따도 텐데지 요요한 지금 몇이는 거 그래서
So then here, the verse 25, the third line, where it says, constantly practicing faith and so on. It's the genuine faith we're talking about here. Genuine faith or the fervent faith. Yes. Of course, when it comes to the faith, again, there are different kinds of faith, so we're not going to go through that. There's clear faith, longing faith, and convinced faith, and so on. But we're not going to go through this at this time. So here now, the one's faith should be the faith should be the part of one's day-to-day practice. One should maintain this faith because this is the foundation of one's practice. And in here, when we're talking about faith, we're not talking about the faith that is blind, the blind faith, the faith with no reasonings and so on. But just simply you just have faith. You should have faith. Otherwise, we are not going to accomplish this and that. This is not going to help us. One's faith here, the faith is the faith, based on reasoning. It's the faith, the genuine faith that here we're talking about. And this should be always within us at all time, any practice one do. And so as soon as when one have this kind of faith, the genuine faith or the fervent faith, that's even when we hear the backgrounds of one's root teacher, one's spiritual teachers, or the stories of the great beings of the past, should enable us to have a special feeling that the hairs from one's body, stands out, and that the tears will running down the cheeks and so on and so forth. And if one is able to have that, just by reflecting one's mind upon the qualities of those great beings, then one is actually, this is a sign of having an actual faith or the fervent faith.
단지 장다 상지 소ten jas, 장다 상지 소ten jas, 장당세야 되겠다. 장바 공부다 이 말이야. 장바 공부다 장바 세야 돼. 저는 로래 장바 공부세. 대바세야 돼 로래. 저도 다 로나요 소르마. 저도 장바 세야 돼 나중에서 소유하나 이래. 대화다 되는 장바 스테메지 가요. 동화도 되는 니제. 대화다 되는 장바 스도와. 저다 장바 공부에서 뭐 서저한테 대화도 되는 제만으로 세야 돼. 대만 주지 대만 다기죠. 대체적인 거는 말하는 소스네. 장바 시대 공부하는데. 서저한테 대화도 되는 제만으로 대만 주지. 대만 다기죠. 대체적인 거는 말하는 소스. 어떻게 그 장바세야 돼. 가르고나 서저한테 대화도 되는 제만으로 소리서 뭐 서저 얘는 때문에 그도 두고 요라잖아. 삼백 그런 게 있어도 용금도 와. 자다는 소화장에서 제가 시험을 하고 장바고한테 장담 해야 돼. 서저한테 대화나 때문에 주지 해야 돼. 장바도 해야 돼. 산지 소화된 자들 산지 지수 장바 해야 돼. 산지 지수 장바 해야 돼. 산지 거를 해야 돼. 다간다. 산지는 대바나다. 전에는 산지게 배 남발인도 전화 하장 가르치고 그 전화서 말하는데 되지도 배 추소 배 가르치고 산지 전화에 산지 추소 배가 뭐야 말해. 남의 배는 주마군데 뭐만하는 일을 뭐요. 제가 산지 주다한테 추소 현재님이 들어왔네. 뭐다. 안에 교신이 신이시에 그래요. 말해. 나 뭐하면지 어디야? 라뇨마다 신경아 세트시에 그래요. 진짜 산지 주다 대주 송세야 돼. 거기서 무슨 지도 산지 담으려는 줘봐. 대주 송봐. 어디나 그래. 제가 대주 산지가 되바나다 그 단단하면서 추유해야지. 대한민국 도다 마세야. 사람 많아 왔더니 소 퇴주해 봐. 소소 통주해 봐. 소소 나는 따주해 봐. 대는 산지 샤자 들어와. 그 가든 나들이 좋아하는 이유가 산지에 가르치고 있어서 산지에 라니래야. 라니 최고다. 그런 거 뭐래야. 나도 네 요소상 가장 가르쳐 버려야 산지 지스트야 되네.
And the fourth line here, so loving kindness and recollection of Buddhas and the rest. Yes. The loving kindness here talks about practicing or meditating on love. It is heartwarming love that we normally talked about, or will find in this 7 cause and effect, the practice of bodhicitta. As we are familiar with this now, this practice of loving, the love is normally again here focusing on all sentient beings and having a genuine aspiration to wishing happiness upon all other sentient beings, in other words. That is genuine wish of happiness upon all other sentient beings. May all sentient beings be happy and free from happiness. May all have the happiness and the cause of happiness. And then there are also there are 4 4 cycle of practice and the love. Here it says, may all sentient beings be happy, possess happiness and the cause of happiness. How wonderfully all beings we have to be able to have this happiness and cause of happiness. And I myself will cause them to have. And may all the Buddha gurus and the deities be able to place all sentient beings to have this happiness and so forth. So those are can be found in the many different texts of text that actually explains about practice of love. And so then, if one is able to maintain this kind of practice at all time, and one's negative feelings of wishing bad upon others or ill will be eradicated, will never be in one's mind. And one's mind will always rest in peace and tranquility. Because of lack of this practice of the genuine practice of love, our mind becomes always unrest and unrest because of all the thoughts that we have: jealousy, anger, sense of competitiveness with others, and so forth. And so, therefore, this verse of this, the words loving kindness in this particular context emphasizes on the importance of practicing love. And the next, it says the collection of Buddhas and the rest. It's literally, it's actually referring to recollect the kindness of the Buddhas. Think about the Buddhas who came to this world for the purpose of benefiting all sentient beings, and the teaching that he has given to us. Not only that he came to this world, but he lived in this world, benefited countless sentient beings, establishing countless sentient beings to the state of enlightenment by giving them teachings of what is to be abandoned and what is to be adopted. And all these teachings that is accessible to us, both Sutra and Tantra, unmistaken and complete teachings. It is because of the Buddha who actually gave all those teachings and transmitted to his followers, disciples, all the way to one's spiritual master. So therefore, one should, have respect and have remember the kindness of the Buddha.
저희는
Well, first of all, there's watermelon in the fridge.
Okay.
First of all, right, correct? There's watermelon, okay. So, that's one thing, but here's my question is, in that introduction, is this like kind of an enticement to read the rest of the book? To show you the path, the goal, the intent of the book? How would you,
You talking about the verses of
what?
the verses of
Your verses? Are you talking about the verse?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, why isn't it at the beginning of the book? Why isn't the introduction?
Oh, why the root text is beginning of the
Why
book?
are the root verses?
Okay.
Yeah, is it to entice you because when you're thinking about, like the one about possessions are enhanced through generosity. Well, if you truly understand that everything has no possession, if you're truly, hypothetically, I would think if you were truly enlightened, you would understand that possessions is a false move. And so like if you gave away your possessions, you would truly understand that you didn't possess anything other than whatever.
Okay.
You see?
Okay. The downward there is a download now turbo recharge any because the moment you reach the sundo there is the downward there is never the to the kind of cash or something. The facility near Kajin Shabras. Facility downward Jawa now. Jawati Chile, so that's in your country shall set to chicken. And never there and the Miguel Longe was and the Kachin to our bunch, Longe, and want to Longe, that want to the Delia want to get Chaji Mijati, the new city was Longe down to the chip. Delia Longe Peboya, Longe Paya tell you, mixing them give Longe Liamma. Delia, Tata, test to do the whole in the Vansichelia, Delia Bedwars, the Kachino of the church.
정원이에 갈다.
La,
정원이에 신도에 갈다.
the Tarbuchero.
너무잖아. 그때 정원에 신부지 삼아서.
Is that a good chuckle or a bad chuckle?
Yeah, so I said, thank you for your watermelon.
My what?
Watermelon.
Okay, then pass on the rest of it. Let's go have watermelon.
저는 이번에 전에 저와 단지방에 그런 들어와. 저는 저와 단지방이 이제 대수 있는다. 근데 배자 소소소소 대수 소소는 종이 중요해. 야, 저와 단지방이가 돼 대표는 중요한 종이 중요해. 야, 저와 단지방인데 맞도 빼만 되니. 자기 자니 맞다게요. 대수도 되어요. 그래서 저와 단지방 단이 속에 난다. 저와 단지방이가 대수 중요한 있는다. 대표 지원도 거르다. kon driba de tsawa de driba jibu son san driba de on jabu ya ta tsawa de ngor tsawa de ba shi ne 안 자다 되는 데서 내가 원하는 데서 원래 그러와. 어때 그래? college 주진이 소화해서.
So first question, the answer to your first question is the root text. Sometime we'll have a root text in a separate booklet.
Right.
We'll find separate booklet and then the commentary of this root text in a separate booklet. So there will be, but then sometime again we will find the root text in the beginning and the commentary will be followed in the following pages.
Right.
And then sometime again root text and the commentary will kind of mixed.
Right.
You will find, and in many different forms. But however, in the way that at the monastery that the monks actually study is first they memorize the root text without going through commentary, which means once you memorize, it's not you're done. You're not done at all. You are allowed to do still. That means you have to, know those commentaries. Because just by remembering the root text and reading the root text, we'll not be able to understand at all. We'll not be able to follow the reference. So then it will emphasize, and it will then, once you have memorized the root text, then we go to the commentary. And by reading the root text verse by verse and explanation, your commentary will be the following the verses.
So
And then this, of course, you are advised to practice from the beginning all the way to that, not only just reading the root, but going through all those commentaries.
So not to be disrespectful, but to put it, so it's almost like it's the Cliff Notes. You know Cliff Notes? Yeah, it's like Cliff Notes. If you read it, you have an understanding, basic, okay. But when you read the whole book and then you read the Cliff Notes again, it brings the whole book to you. Would that be
Yeah, that's right.
Is that kind of how it goes?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
There is a Quran Zawadi Log Zawlan, Jawadan given, and sometimes we get Jawadi Miguel and they had Jawadinia, Zaw Hawatusia, you could say, Dosia Queen, on the Bemercy to lawyer of the inside a certain literature.
그래서 저는 잡았으나 여러 자원들 봐. 자, 저렇게 지지 때문에 유튜브 디바를 자요. 월자 저렇게 지지 어떤 디바야.
That's true.
네,
That's right. Yeah.
다저 손바닥인데.
Don't
먼저 배웠어야 돼. 근데 그한테 론지, 집어도 론지, 누굴 론지 빼그랬어. 뭐 집에도 론지 빼야 돼. 더다 소설이야 론지, 뭐요 같지다. 론지 집어요 뭐 이때 말해. 제가 론지에서는 제가 말도 론지 뭐고요. 론지의 뭐고요는 표시 갈등은 현실을 찾는지 론지. 근데 그들 론지 빼는 론지 요는 그 현실을 찾는지래요. 뭐는 론지 중앙시 당시 월 얘는 말아도 단내 담보 초를 론지에 대해야 가서 요한테 때 론지를 차야 당 때에 처음 시바 때기 오래 그렇게 여러분 뭐니 소소로 론지를 맞아봐다 맞행이 때지 가서 이비는 때로부터 론지 가서 요한이나 시행을 편들을 장자지 마 소소 지도 표제다 소소에 대해 처음 시바 단내 지한테 연구 그래서 론지들이 최근에 미팅 상만에 공부해 주는 거 다른 것들을 론지 배워도 돈도되나 근데 시행을 차지 개정이 예비자네 어느 론지 조약시도지마다 그래서
So the positions, the enhancing the position here is now, for we as ordinary beings, when we have the positions and our resources, we always have attachment to that, and we become more. We long to have more positions, more and more positions, unending positions. We'll just keep looking at that. But in this particular context, when we talk about enhancing position, is only solely for the purpose of benefiting other sentient beings. That is what is meant by enhancing of. It is to practicing and when because having these resources and positions, one will be able to help other sentient beings, numerous other sentient beings, and able to practice one's generosities and whatever that is needed for the individual or the beings who are needed and who are desperate. So one will be able to give them the resources and positions that one may have without having any attachment and so forth. Because for us as a practitioner at this time, ordinary practitioners or initial practitioners, we need these resources to really to practice or perfect one's practice of generosity. Without having it, and we will not be able to, perfect one's practice. And in order to practice in generosity, of course, well, if one is really a good practice of generosity, then one doesn't need much of those resources or the positions to give others. However, we as initial practitioners, we need all kinds of methods and skillful means to really to perfect one's practice. For that, we need these positions. And that positions again, as again and again, we just emphasize strongly, one should not cling to it, one should not have any attachment to it. But one's very purpose of enhancing resources in one's position is to solely to benefit other beings.
지난 지바 다야 대양 가르나 지바 세는 당의 지바이나 지바 다나가 로준 중국에서 메데 레와 진 지바 다와는 지바 세대 말해 저서 타와 시대에 상고 레와다 타와 지고 지바 땅을 가야 민 지바 다나가 로준 중국에서 레와 진 지바 다한테 지바 세대 말해.
So now important part is here now. Although that it says the practice of generosity, what it says, the enhanced positions are enhanced through generosity. So when it's engaging in practice of generosity, one should not have any motivations of having positions. I'm practicing generosity so that I'll have resources and abundance of resources in the future. One should not have this kind of motivations. Because if one has this kind of motivations, this one practice will not become a practice of generosity. So making sure that one's practice of generosity, giving a gift to others or giving something to others, should be done, not having any obligations. One should not have any hope for receiving reward from anyone, even not for that person or name, or someone may praise me because if I give this to them, I may please somebody. You should not have that at all. Just only the motivation is just to benefit that person, that individual.
네, 저당의 지바도는 로준 중국에서 얼마다 아야 지바도 로준 중국에서 레와데 정말나 로준 중국이 와야 말하나 선소도 로준 용이 지연 바이나 지바세네 당의 지바이나 네야 신주 주요 초대주변이나 자한테 저거 주변 거대라서 저기 왜 저거 있는 자주 못었다 소소 보고 그러자다 제가 된지만 나한테다 연다지한테 야 제얘는 오늘 집에 저거 당해지나 집에 다 로주에 가서 뭐해나 telepathically 집에 뭐 아파도야 얘는 뭐 하고
So if the practice of generosity, the result of practice of generosity is naturally will give us a positions or resources. But when one is engaging in practice of generosity, one should not have this kind of motivations at all. If you have this kind of motivation, then that is one is actually accelerating one's attachment and one's for hope for some rewards of one's practice, which is completely wrong. But practice generosity is very important. So therefore, again, the resources is also important, such as the great Indian kings of the past. So, the king Dimikundin, who actually gave away all his belongings, jewels, and all those precious. That is, he actually emptied his entire, treasure house, and finally he even give away his own children, and even wife. The queen is given away to somebody. So those are the resources that is actually benefiting others without any obligations.
We should say the dedication prayer.
Okay. More than 30 seconds.
On page 23 and 24, continuing with the auspicious wishes on page 29. Indagi jine sabe
Yavade Edangava Kulaka Cheva Jose Lozantavai Ebeni Boredo Sajero
Saji Koki
Twaye Bezota Jajani Jini Javad Sanji Jidu Rade Buwai Rabbe Nanda Jina Jebarayo
Eva Kundu
Yana Lama Nama
Yame
Chije Pela Manjit
Sadam
Lanje Yede Razone Doje Jagye Gopanya Dojo
Yedam Guru Atlam
Medala Kane Atayame
Jetsun Lame Kutse
Pradeje Nagadale Jojo Divana Lozante Bedreme Samoni Raye Meze Tazone Juroji
Tagri Rawe
Koye Shinkanzo Bedan Deva Male Juve Chiri Sewa Desi Jasuyi Chabe Zete Badu Tenjuruji
Chapel Pawu
Cheda Chebada Gonzo Sambo Deya Dejente Pela Guji Jesu Dalochi Kewa Deda Damje Rato Kewa Chebe Jawa Damje Mawa Kala Shudu Mabad Dagi Give Sawan Divit Sambo Jeje Rato Mawaji